In partnership with Singing Hills Memorial Park, welcome to Journey Home Radio, discussing the most important topics around life's most sacred goodbye. This is Journey Home Radio.
Hey there, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this Saturday afternoon. My name is Cody, and I'm here with Yvette.
Hi.
And today we thought we'd keep it a little more lighthearted and talk about some of the more interesting aspects of the funeral industry. There will be a few, uncomfortable truths thrown in there, but today is more about exploring different options, different cultures, things like that.
I think, too, with how serious of a time it is in our country right now, it'd be nice to have a little bit more of the lighthearted side of things here before we do some uncomfortable stuff.
A little bit of levity.
Yeah, exactly. I had a client yesterday talking about facts of cemeteries and the history of them. She asked why there were coins on a marker, a headstone. And it wasn't registering at first, but then I realized that someone had left a quarter on a veteran marker. And so I instantly went over the traditions with her that the military, it's a form of communication amongst the military when they visit people that they know at the cemetery, that they'll leave like a penny, a nickel, a dime, or a quarter. And each one has a different meaning. Did you know this?
No, I didn't, actually.
Yeah. So they don't bury it, they leave it on the actual marker. So finding out a little more information, traditionally, this might have changed a little bit over the years. I think it's becoming this weird form of communication, too, amongst different people in the military. But anyways, traditionally, the penny is a symbol of I visited, like a simple sign of respect to the person. The nickel means that we trained together. And I know that this is where you're laid to rest. So they trained in boot camp, or they were in the same, I forget what they call it, but besides boot camp, same base.
Yeah.
The dime is that we served actually together in the field. So the quarter was interesting to me because that means that I was with them when they died, or I was there at the end.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so this communication has kind of evolved over the years, but I thought that was a interesting thing that we forget about communication and histories of cemeteries and what people and how they celebrate and communicate. I thought it was a great tradition.
That's funny. I mean, we have about 800 veterans at Singing Hills right now, and you would think after all the times I've spent stomping around the ground looking for this person or that person that I would have noticed different size coins on there. But I mean, I guess there's so much stuff out, it would be easy to overlook a coin.
Yeah. Well, and because we have bronze memorial, brass looking headstones, we wouldn't necessarily see the pennies, but it caught her eye because it was a quarter. So we sat and talked about the different traditions, but I had to actually look up the one for the quarter because I had never seen a quarter. I had seen the dimes and the nickels and the pennies that they visited, but a quarter was interesting to me.
Yeah, that's a new one. I'm going to have to look more into that.
Yeah.
I've helped a few people with making their veteran arrangements because a lot of people don't know this. They think that the U.S. government is just going to take care of everything, and unfortunately, that's not the case.
Right.
But what we can do is help you fill out all the necessary forms to either be reimbursed for some of the expenses you put towards their actual services or their plot, and then help you get your veteran marker in order.
Yep. And even you can do companion matches too for your veterans. So if the veteran is laid to rest in our cemetery, we can also copy that marker for their spouse when they're laid to rest too. But that was a cool little tradition. Have you seen any historic traditions that piqued your interest or that you've seen?
This is sort of my Roman Empire. I love all the different things that are available to people. Maybe not locally, but you can find them somewhere. Probably one of my favorite examples is in Crestone, Colorado. That is the only place in the U.S., and it's a town of like 150 people or something like that. It is the only place you can have a funeral pyre.
What's that?
Basically, excuse me, it's where your loved one is basically laid atop a bonfire and cremated, just not in a retort.
So is this like the Viking type?
Yes, it is sort of similar to that, but I was looking the other day and I found out that the only place you can really have even something close to a Viking funeral is in Oregon. God, I love Oregon. They're so weird. But they take care of the remains by the letter to the law. And, there's no putting someone on a boat, pushing them out into a lake, but they do have flaming boat replicas, and they'll do fireworks, ceremonial bonfires. If you can dream it, it's probably out there somewhere.
Well, and there's so many series out there right now with the Vikings that are popular. I know I watched them personally. That'd be kind of cool to have the boats that look like they're on fire, even if they're not. But
I imagine they're probably like smaller replicas just for like safety and environmental reasons. But it's still really cool that someone actually thought about that and turned it into a business.
Well, I remember one of the most memorable scenes of the Vikings that I've seen was when they shot the arrow of fire to the stack that was floating away on the river, and then it lit up. Like, that's a pretty cool idea. That's something you wouldn't be able to do unless you pre-planned it.
Yeah, way in advance. I'm sure there's all kinds of permits and things that you need in order to pull that off. But if you can do that, I would love to help someone figure that out. I helped a lady once figure out how to, because forever and a day ago, her father bought spaces in Israel, and they were Jewish. And we have this basically phone book sized book called the Red Book, or the Funeral Red Book. And basically it'll go through and tell you the rules and regulations for the transportation and disposition of remains from everywhere in the U.S. To basically everywhere that we can ship internationally. And it was like it was a good 2 pages of things that needed to be accomplished before we could ship you out of the country to Israel. And that was back in 2020.
Yeah, that brings up a topic of like having, away from home protection. We offer that at Singing Hills Memorial Park, where you could pay a fee and the company pays if you are more than 75 miles from your home to bring you back and make the arrangements. So that is something what like you're speaking of. You have the consulate, you have the permits, you're international. The under $500 cost to have that protection is amazing, especially like you just went on a cruise. I don't think we always think about these things right off the bat.
Oh yeah, no, I just went on a cruise, but probably one of the best examples that I've ever seen of this was my dad is very into scuba diving, and he went on a trip to Bonaire, which if you don't know is off the coast of Venezuela. And I don't know if it was one of his friends or just someone that was on the dive boat with them had a heart attack while they were underwater, passed. But since Bonaire is part of the Dutch Antilles, his remains had to go from Bonaire to Venezuela to Holland to New York to Atlanta. And it was very, very expensive.
Oh, I can't even imagine the paperwork too for that.
Yeah, and the best part is the way this is designed, because paramedics all over the world are trained to figure out who you are first and foremost. And so Sepio Guard sends you an ID, basically, that goes behind your photo ID, your driver's license, ID card, whatever. And so when they find that, they call the 24-hour number, and Sepio Guard takes over from there. Even if you were to go to Tijuana, forwarding and receiving of remains is probably $2,400-$2,500 each way, and then paperwork international is $600.
Not only that, but our local mortuaries won't cross the border. They'll stop there, and you have to have a mortuary in Mexico sometimes stop at the border to make a transfer.
A handoff, yeah. Nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that. I know a previous away from home company did not cover Tijuana because it wasn't more than 75 miles from San Diego. I am extremely pleased to hear that Sepio Guard does do that, because so many people do work here, and some even live in Mexico, and they go back and forth. So, that'd be a great protection for them, because even though it's close, it's still another country. If you're just tuning in, we're from Singing Hills Memorial Park. We are discussing some of the truths of what happens when someone passes away. Today we had some lighthearted facts that we're going over, and another one I'd like to talk about is how cemeteries were like in the 19th century. Did you know that in the 19th century it was traditional to have a picnic at your loved one's cemetery plot?
Actually, I just read about this the other day. Excuse me. I just found out that wakes were originally brought about because they wanted to make sure that their loved ones had not in fact been buried alive. So basically they would go back like the day after, or maybe a day or two after, and have a picnic and sit there and basically listen and check and make sure that the deceased was actually deceased.
Well, yeah. And two, we didn't have parks back then. So in the 18 and 1900s, they started developing where they would bury loved ones just outside the perimeter of like a church and on their grounds. And after Sunday school, basically these families pack lunches and they sit graveside because it's peaceful, like a park. And they would basically have lunch together as if in reflecting the belief that their dead loved ones are still part of their family. Like they're spending Sunday afternoon having lunch with them. Then come the 20th century, we now have, actual city-made parks. So cemeteries were actually the first parks that people would go visit and leisure and have picnics at before we built city parks. And since building the city parks, the other thing that's happened is cemeteries have made up some more restricted rules, like they don't want the food or the large gatherings. So that's what's kind of changed it. And then I guess even like through the funeral directors, they started to begin marketing cemeteries as if they were these solemn memorial spaces. Like going to the cemetery is for sad purposes and not so much that traditional old school thinking of let's go have a picnic with our loved one and celebrate them. And they're still with us, we're having lunch together. I think my generation is Generation X. Yours is
Millennial.
And I think what's interesting is both of our generations would like to see more of that celebration come back. I feel like it's kind of gone to just all this sadness. And some of these traditions are pretty cool. Like it's nice to see families have a picnic.
I feel like there is a shift happening. Before I worked at Singing Hills, I worked more sort of on the corporate side of things. So I've been to conferences and stuff like that. And I've learned a lot of really cool stuff. For instance, just overall in general, people are becoming more and more comfortable with the idea of cremation. And don't quote me on this, but I believe they said that the Jewish community, even that I think it was 3% of them were okay or at least open to the idea of cremation. And by like 2037 or something like that, it would have risen to 14%. But I definitely have started to see sort of a shift in the way people view and think of death. And I really like what you brought up about, those being the first public parks, because that's honestly my favorite thing about Singing Hills. Almost every single one of my families that comes for a first time visit tells me like, it doesn't even feel like a cemetery. And you're right, it doesn't. Like you'll look out there and you'll see people setting up their soccer mom tents and having a full family picnic on their loved one's site.
I love it. Cemetery picnics, they are a thing, people. They started in the 19th century, packing lunches, and we like to see people come out and visit their loved ones. I feel like more now it's like on their birthday or an anniversary, but I mean, back in the day, they spent every Sunday with their family member amongst the church grounds in what they felt was serene and relaxing park environment. Going on to a new fun fact, I've also just recently learned that about tombstone time capsules. Have you heard of this?
I have not.
This is new. So a lot of our older cemeteries, probably in the early 1900s, late 1800s, in some places people would slip letters and objects inside the foundation of the memorial upright and it was messages to the future generations. Like, can you imagine you go visit your great uncle and you find that there's this letter, maybe even like a treasure map?
How are we supposed to know about that, though? Do they just expect us to knock over their headstone one day?
I think that these are things that used to happen, and somewhere along the line, just people
forgot.
Just stopped talking about it.
That is,
so they don't know to even look.
That is probably one of the big reasons is death has become so taboo. No one wants to talk about it. And it makes everything infinitely harder in the end. Like, especially if you've never had the conversation with your spouse, your siblings, your parents, your grandparents. Like, I mean, ask yourself right now, do you know if your parents want to be cremated or buried? If the answer is, I don't know, maybe you should go talk to them.
Yeah. These conversations definitely have to happen more. I like the idea of this tombstone time capsule. We kind of have a newer version of that these days with mortuaries where, I don't know if you know this, but there are caskets that you can purchase that have drawers. And in these drawers, you can put letters and trinkets and things like that. Now, of course, you're not going to find those unless you went back and dug deep to find it, which no one's going to do. But I think this is a cool little idea of having some sort of something in your around your memorial that is like a little letter or a note. Like, even some of the headstones have symbols that have different meanings. I don't know all of them. I know, I think the lamb meant peace, but some of these symbols tell a story without actually writing the words on the marker as well. So it was kind of cool history that we learned recently or been looking at.
And if you want to literally tell a story, there's also a company that will help you pre-record a message, and they will install a QR code on your headstone, and your family can scan it.
I did see that. And then I think that even comes up with, there was something about a hologram. I think you can, with a QR code or it's like a video message.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
It'll pull up a pre-recorded message of them saying oh, I love you, or, whatever they decided to say.
Before the QR code, I think it was a recording. You could walk up to someone's monument and they had a screen and you could play something that told that person's history. Have you ever seen that?
No.
Yeah. So monuments are large memorials that people purchase, to put the person's name on, a saying or whatever. Some people like to put Bible verses and passages, but yeah, there is a type of memorial where you could watch a video in their private little estate, like what we call legacy estates.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So
I didn't know they came with touchscreens.
Well, not only that, but I mean, they say you can't take your money with you. Oh, yes, you can. Come see us. We'll tell you how.
Some people have tried.
For sure. Getting back to the picnics too, I think this tradition, you mentioned when we talked in the past that this picnic idea might have been taken from historically maybe Mexican traditions. That picnic environment is a lot like what the Hispanic community does on their Day of the Dead, also known as, I can't say it.
Dia de los Muertos.
Thank you. Every time I say it, it doesn't sound appropriate. I tried. I can't even roll an R.
It's okay.
But yeah, I think these...
That is one of my favorite traditions, though. Even though I'm not Hispanic, I was a Spanish major in college, so I speak Spanish and I studied the culture pretty extensively, and actually there's a huge Dia de los Muertos festival in Birmingham, Alabama every year. And so that's really the only proper one I've been to. So I'm looking forward to my first Day of the Dead at Singing Hills, because I know we always have a big event.
Yeah, Singing Hills Memorial Park in East County on November 1st. It's Saturday. We'll be hosting one. But yeah, it goes back to that whole tradition of picnics. It's a vibrant Mexican tradition. It honors your loved ones. They make altars.
Ofrendas.
Yeah, you make an altar. You can direct their memorial spaces. The schools are popular. And there's another tradition in there too. It kind of reminds people to laugh at death rather than fear it, I think, in that tradition.
Yeah, and that's why they do the face painting and stuff like that. They do have a much, in my opinion, healthier relationship with death.
I think so too. I think we can all learn something from their traditions on that. Food, they have their favorite foods, their beverages and drinks, and the skeleton imagery that they do, like
the sugar skulls and all that stuff.
Yeah, and the intricate, face painting of their cultural, are they called sugar skulls? Is that what they
are skulls made of sugar. I can't remember off the top of my head the actual name, but they're just sugar skulls.
Yeah. So anyways, we will have that event with us on November 1st if people are interested in it. Is there any other tradition before I cover some hard truths?
Speaking of tradition, one of my probably favorite facts about the industry is that even though it is predominantly male now, it was seen traditionally as a woman's job, because funerals took place in the home, typically on your kitchen table, because where else are you going to do it besides maybe the bed? So until it was commercialized, it was seen as like a woman's duty, a home duty, to take care and prepare the deceased, make all the arrangements. And then, of course, the church would come in and help with the actual burial bit.
I didn't know that. I did not know that. Is that you had mentioned to me something about the history about embalming? What was different back then in how people were embalmed versus today? Do you know?
So, depending on where you're talking about, because if we go to Egyptian, that's one thing. There is, you want to talk about mummies, for example. There were practices of sort of like the upper class. They would embalm their loved ones similarly to the Egyptians.
There was something about, was it sawdust?
Oh, that's right. So in the U.S., embalming really started around the time of the Civil War, because before that, it was pretty much everyone in their own town just kind of like helped out. But with, sons and husbands and grandfathers going far away, and they wanted their loved ones back. And so a method of preservation was filling the deceased with sawdust so that they could be put on a train and transported back. It's a little bit morose, but
Sorry, I put you on the spot there. I just remember you having a conversation about it, and it just popped in my brain. I never knew that was something that they did, but it makes sense. Now, we covered basically just some fun facts. We wanted it to be lighthearted and tell you a little bit of history about the cemeteries. Now we're going to get into some uncomfortable truths. Things that we heard recently that really hit home with Cody and I was the average lifespan of a person is 76 years, if you didn't know. And that then makes the middle age not 50. We think middle-aged is 50. It's actually 38.
Yeah, and I love this because I'm 33, and so she just sent me into a midlife crisis that I didn't even know I needed.
Well, now I kind of understand why I did a lot of adopting dogs around 38. It must have been a midlife crisis. Eventually, one thing you will regret is not doing more things that you love. That's statistically what people tend to say when it's close to the end. So getting to that, I think the world doesn't wait for you to be ready, so start anyway. And one way to start is pre-planning. Singing Hills Memorial Park in El Cajon at www.singinghillsmemorialpark.com. Make sure I got the whole thing out. 444-3000. This is Yvette.
And I'm Cody.
And we just want to welcome any questions and would love to hear any comments. If you would like to come and meet with us, we welcome it. And we want to thank our listeners for tuning in.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week.
Have a great Saturday.
Thank you for listening to Journey Home Radio. We look forward to talking with you again next Saturday at noon right here on K-Praise.